Okay, let's get started. We got it pretty well set up as far as the rough out is concerned, so now we'll start giving it detail, and I'll start in the front and work my way to the back. So we'll start with the leg at the front. So in order to get the shape for the knuckle, I use a number 9 5mm gouge to go around below and above the knuckle joint, and then to help make the knuckle joint a little bit round, I use a number 5 upside down. It's 7mm, but it could be a little bit wider, and I use it to go around the knuckle joint. So that gives me a relatively smooth knuckle joint around top and bottom of that front foot. So the same thing would apply on the back. The big knuckle joint up here, it's not quite as prominent as the one in the front, but it's still there. So then the trick is to get this lower section done down here. And if you notice in the diagram that there is the frill that they put on, and all that is a bunch of triangular cuts, and I did that on this one here. Let me zoom in a little bit on that. Just simply with a knife. I tried drawing it on, and I gave up trying to draw it on. And you can see how far apart I made it. I made it quite substantial as far as the distance apart. I think less is more, so that if you set that up. But the first trick is to get the general shape at the front, get that smooth shape coming, and once you get that established, then you can cut in the frills. So that's basically what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take and make sure this area where the frill is going to be is relatively smooth, and I'll just use a wider, flatter gouge to do that. In this case, it'll be this. Oops, where are we? There we are. This gouge here, and it's a number 5, 12mm. So that gives me a fairly smooth cut by coming up. It'll take most of the rough edges away. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll be able to set up for the frill on the bottom. So there it is, relatively smooth. It doesn't have to be perfectly smooth, but give it some sort of a base all the way around so that you can do it. So then that frill can be up high or can be down low. So if you pick it down low, you'll find that it's easier to remove the hunk of wood. So we're going to mark on, and you can see that it's fairly wide how I'm doing that. I'm going to throw away the pencil now and just carve it. So I'll just put it in, put the knife in straight, and outline it. It's going to be tough for me to do it on camera. So I'll just do one, and then give you an idea. So just a stop cut on both sides, and then you can come up and remove that hunk of wood in between to create the depth that you need in there for that frill. So that's just repeated all the way around to create the frill. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back. So there is a half done one, just to give you an idea. Shadow's not that great in here. So don't make it perfectly even, mess around with it. Use the knife in here, you mean? Yeah, I used the knife all the way and picked out all the pieces. So now, as you can see in the diagram, the toes are split. So that's simply, we brought it to a point in our original design. So just grab a V-tool and split the toes. It's as simple as that. So if you kind of see that, I got it a little bit crooked, but kind of give you an idea how I would have split it. Now I used a V-tool in there, and I would likely clean it up with a knife. Just come back in and well, it looks something like that. Okay, then next once we get that done, down here we'll work on he's got too much of a muscular shoulder as far as I'm concerned. I want to make the belly stand out a little bit more, so I'm going to knock his shoulder in, a good distance, likely in maybe that far there. So I just use a big gouge to number 5, 20 millimeter, and work it up to maintain the shape. I'm going to knock it in a fair bit. I'll go ahead and do that. So there's the shoulder thinned down. I'll give you a different view in a second. I had to put an extra V-cut in here to help define the difference between the belly and the shoulder. And so now if I turn it around, I've only done the one side, so you can see the difference in the amount of material on this side compared to the amount of material on the other side. So it's not half, but it's a good third of it was taken off. So that, as you can see, makes the belly stand out a little bit. And that kind of matches what has happened at the back. If we thin down the back hip here, and so that kind of helps to make the belly hang out a little bit more. So there's the front leg, hoof, and shoulder. So we'll start on our back side first, and if you remember correctly, I had you do his tailbone. So now we got to get these two big hips, and all we're going to do is round them off so that it looks something like this guy here. So just get the edges, make a little knob up there, get the edges all taken off. And I just use about a number 5 gouge upside down so that you could use it in reverse, and that'll help. Just get the angle and clean it out. I'll go ahead and do that. So there it is with the knobs more or less finished. So I rounded it over the top with a gouge, and then I come back in with another gouge to clean out around it, just to emphasize it, make them stick out more. So the more you make them wing out on the top, the more effective you're going to have. It looks to me like I could take a little bit off of this side over here to make it match the other side. So I'll likely do that. So then the next thing is to carry that shape from that you've created at the back to come down and create the backbone. Now, if this was narrower at the back, and there's no reason why you couldn't make the tailbone narrower, then you would narrow in the backbone all the way down. In the diagram, I can't see that it is indicated, but I think it'd look very effective to have a backbone with the ribs of the backbone sticking up. So I'd like to thin that down a little bit. So you can see the backbone now. I've taken a gouge and run down both sides, and that leaves the backbone sitting up high. So the shape from the belly up to the ribs, and then the notch to go up to the backbone is there, and then I've got too sharp of an edge along both sides, so I'll have to knock that down a little bit. And then deciding how I want to put the ribbing across that backbone to give it a shape that looks like it's really well worn or an older type cow, and just to give a little more character. So I'll go ahead and work on that a little bit. See where I have started to get the notches put in to show up better that way. Yeah, there you go. So all I do is make a circle with a V tool to give it those shapes. Give it that edge, and then you can come back in with the point of a knife and kind of round over the edges just by using a knife in there. So what we've done is establish the backbone by putting some knuckles in there. You just have to smooth out the sides now, and you can continue down in between here if you want to put ribs in there. One, not necessary, but another feature that could be added.